For decades, Russia built its global power on energy. It was the petrostate that warmed European homes and fueled global industry. But today, an unexpected reality has settled over the Russian Federation. From the Baltic enclave of Kaliningrad to the frozen stretches of Vladivostok, the pumps at the neighborhood station are wrapped in yellow tape. When an energy infrastructure failure strikes a nation as vast as the Russian Federation, it does not happen all at once. It cascades across time zones. By mid-2026, 78 out of Russia's 83 internationally recognized federal sub-entities, republics, kreis, oblasts, autonomous okrugs, and federal cities, were reporting acute fuel supply disruptions, localized rationing, or total retail depletion. Only 5 remote or specialized regions managed to maintain uninterrupted retail fuel flows. For the rest of the Federation, the crisis shifted from a logistical headache into a sweeping national emergency. The fuel crisis rippled across Russia's vast territory in 3 distinct waves, dictated by refinery proximity, transport rail networks, and military prioritization. Being closest to both the conflict zone and targeted oil depots, these regions suffered immediate supply cutoffs as available petrol and diesel were requisitioned directly for military logistics trucks and armored columns. Occupied Crimea and Sevastopol were among the first to declare states of emergency, capping sales at 20 liters per vehicle, home to Russia's largest fluid catalytic cracking plants, such as the Ryazan and Lukoil Nizhegorod Nefteorgzintez refineries. As drone strikes damaged primary processing towers, local gas station networks, including Rosneft, Lukoil, and Tatneft, imposed strict purchase limits. In parts of Moscow Oblast, stations restricted civilian sales to 60 liters of gasoline and 100 liters of diesel per day. Though thousands of kilometers from the front lines, Siberia and the Russian Far East suffered from severe logistical dislocation. With European Russian refineries down, fuel had to be rerouted over thousands of miles via the Trans-Siberian and Baikal-Amur railways. Freight bottlenecks left outlying regions like Magadan, Chukotka, and North Caucasus republics with 0 operating public gas stations for extended stretches. The administrative response across the 78 affected sub-entities revealed deep friction between regional governors and the Kremlin, official rationing and emergency declarations, while the Kremlin maintained publicly that the deficit was non-critical. Regional governors faced immediate civil unrest and logistical collapse. At least 38 federal subjects enacted mandatory caps on retail fuel sales. Oblasts such as Penza, Irkutsk, and Zabaikalsky Krai officially declared states of emergency to bypass federal red tape and ration remaining stocks for essential services. Priority tiering for municipal services. In regions like Saratov, Volgograd, and Krasnodar, regional administrations established strict fuel priority tiers. Gasoline was reserved exclusively for emergency service vehicles, ambulances, fire engines, municipal post-transit, pochta and agricultural equipment during harvest windows. Why the 78 sub-entities metric matters. The fact that 78 out of 83 sub-entities faced simultaneous shortages shattered the official narrative that fuel issues were merely isolated technical glitches or seasonal tourism surges. It proved that Russia's domestic refining capacity had dropped below the baseline threshold required to keep its internal geography connected. In a nation spanning 11 time zones, when 94% of federal subjects experience fuel rationing at once, the physical infrastructure binding the Federation together begins to stall. 50 million citizens, 35% of the population. Behind the industrial statistics and geopolitical maneuvering lies a human metric. Approximately 50 million citizens, 35% of the Russian Federation's total population, experiencing direct disruption to their daily lives. In a modern nation where long-distance highway travel, last-mile food delivery, agricultural harvests, and suburban commutes rely heavily on internal combustion engines, an acute fuel deficit transforms from an abstract economic metric into a pervasive social crisis. 1. Who are the 50 million? The impact is not distributed evenly. It falls heavily on specific demographics and socioeconomic groups whose livelihoods depend on unhindered mobility, demographic group size/scope, primary impact and disruption. Suburban commuters and private drivers, approximately 22 million, forced into multi-hour gas station queues, reliance on crowdsourced tracking apps, or switching to overcrowded public transit. Agricultural and farm workers, approximately 8 million harvest delays during critical seasonal windows due to diesel rationing and strict local permit quotas. Gig economy and last mile delivery, approximately 6 million. Courier app drivers, taxi operators, and freight truckers seeing earnings erased by gray market fuel surcharges. Small town and rural residents, approximately 14 million. Total isolation in single station towns, where fuel stock runs dry for days or weeks at a time. 2. The daily anatomy of disruption. The digital search for fuel, civilian driver communities turned to Telegram channels and crowdsourced interactive maps to post real-time updates on which stations still had gasoline, how long the lines were, and whether physical fights had broken out. Macroeconomic inflation hit because freight trucking moves the vast majority of consumer goods across Russia. Gasoline and diesel price surges, rising nearly 20% in months, immediately trickled down into food and grocery retail. The Central Bank of Russia cited rising fuel costs as a primary inflationary driver, forcing prolonged high interest rates, overburdened public transit, with private cars stranded in driveways. Municipal transit systems in regional capitals like Kaliningrad, Voronezh, and Krasnodar saw passenger volume surge past maximum capacity, while local authorities simultaneously reduced daily bus schedules to conserve municipal fuel reserves. 3. Documentary script. Insert the human reality interior. Apartment building lobby. Voronezh, Day Evgeny, 42, a delivery driver, checks his phone on the stairwell. His route app displays 14 pending deliveries across the city. His gas gauge sits squarely on red. When a petrostate can no longer supply fuel to its own population, the psychological shock is profound. For 50 million citizens, the daily routine has been rewritten, not by official decree, but by the quiet stillness of empty pumps. Russia, to extend gasoline export ban until year-end, Deputy PM. This news report provides direct coverage of the official statements from Russia's leadership regarding the national fuel crisis and the decision to extend gasoline export restrictions to protect domestic supplies.